Morning and welcome to Castle Combe. So we're here for the last event of their season, which is quite exciting. Not the last event of our season, we're going to be doing a few more, but exciting times for me personally as the Civic is back, it's repaired thanks to all the guys over in Kettering at the Kettering Motorsport Centre. Tim and Rich and everyone there done a fab job, and looking forward to getting out there in it today here at Castle Combe. So this is really only acting as like a shakedown, so we're not really taking it serious. We're not like in terms of like going for like fast laps or whatever. We're just trying to make sure that the car is good, everything feels right. Of course I want to go there and try and get a good lap time, but just have fun and make sure the car's all good. I have got some MRF tyres on, some brand new ones, so looking forward to seeing how they work out. Obviously we had a bit of running on the same sort of tyre at Silverstone, so I kind of know what they're like, but not that much. Obviously we only did 1.001 races. We'll be getting out there soon, but as you could probably see behind us over here, the fog has really sort of disrupted this morning. So we're supposed to start the schedule, I guess you'd say, at 8:30, and we're now getting towards 9:30, and the first series is still waiting in the assembly area there. So it did clear briefly for like 10 minutes. It got probably good enough to run out there, but unfortunately by the time everyone got to the assembly area, unfortunately the conditions got a bit worse again. I mean, it was pretty bad this morning. It's obviously a lot better than it was when we got up, but still they need to make sure that the circuit's in a good enough condition for us to all go out there and enjoy our racing, because obviously all the marshals need to be able to see the cars and so on. But interestingly, as well as us being here today, we've got Chris in a Saxo, who you remember from my first ever race. He's racing in Track Attack, who's waiting up in the assembly area there. And then we've got Marcus, his father, who's racing his Ascar in my race as well as in the Open Series race at the end of the day. So it's going to be nice to share a track with Marcus, I think for the first time ever. Yeah, I think it is. So looking forward to that later on. Of course he's going to be much quicker in his car, but regardless, it'd be nice to share the track with him for a little bit. So yeah, we're the next session out after these guys, so whenever they get going, I'll get the last few things prepared: helmet, balaclava, gloves, hands device and all that sort of stuff, shoes, make sure we've got everything fireproof on, get in the car and go out for our qualifying session here. So I'm assuming everything's going to be a bit delayed for the rest of the day. I mean, they might be able to get a bit of time back through missing out lunch, but we'll just see how that goes. But overall, really looking forward to how this day is going to go. Just excited, really. Not really any pressure to go and do anything special today. Just go out there, make sure the car feels all good, and yeah, get prepared for our last race of the season in this car in a few weeks' time. Got 2 more races in the KA as well, so we've got 4 races to go in this season. Oh, sorry, 4 events to go, more than that in terms of races. So I'm excited to see how this all goes. And a big trip next week, which we'll see in a video soon. Looking forward to that one. But regardless, I'll see you when we're in the car. So let's have a look at the conditions. This is some footage that John shot in the morning before any of these sessions had taken place. You can see here, he's not that far away from the main Castle Combe offices, and you can hardly see the sign here. Here's the pace car going around, and he was still struggling to see that far in front of him here. A little bit of a pan to show you how much fog there was here at the start of this day. You can see all of the cars in the assembly area there for that first session of the day, qualifying for Track Attack, which actually is a series that I'm going to hopefully race in a little bit in 2022. But you can see here, as we sort of pan across down the pit straight, the visibility is not great, so it was the sensible decision to not go out there and race first thing. We had to wait, I'd say, about 2 or so hours. The guys in the assembly area were waiting there for quite a long time, but eventually that mist did go away and we did get out on track. The first session was the Track Attack, which all went to plan. Then it would be us in the GTs, and you can see here we're here with Chris and Marcus. Chris was racing in Track Attack, Marcus was racing in my race and also in the Open race as well, so quite cool to share a grid with him once again after my first race back in 2019. But this time he's in a slightly different car, not his normal Saxo. And the Honda is back thanks to the guys at Kettering Motorsport Centre. Nice sticker on the side of their car there. I think that actually didn't look too bad. The red and black theme isn't looking too bad right now. We'll see how that develops in the future. But here we are, ready to go out in qualifying. You can hear in the background the final calls for the Castle Combe series to get out there and get to the assembly area, but I think because we were quite far behind schedule, obviously everyone's schedules had got slightly disrupted, but I think most people played ball and got into the assembly area at the right time. The day went really smoothly afterwards. As always, a massive thank you to Marshalls for getting it back on schedule and making it run perfectly, and also Thomas, you can see there, he always comes and chats to us at Castle Combe, and a really great guy within the paddock, and the Marshalls and the whole vibe of Castle Combe is fantastic, and the reason why I love keep going back, even though in terms of my performances out on track, my events there have struggled, but I still enjoy myself because of the whole day around it. So here we go, out in qualifying, first time in the Honda for about a month and a half since the last session at Silverstone. So going out on track, of course I was a little bit nervous. I know the track, I know the car, but it's just a load of little things coming together which is going to make this weekend a bit of a tough one. So you can see the mist is still there, it has not gone away, but it's got to the place where we can still get out there and go for our sessions in qualifying. Of course the main thing is making sure that the marshals can see from post to post, just if there was an incident that people were notified correctly. Overall I think the running of this day was absolutely incredible, all things considered. We got quite far behind schedule. We were starting I think around 8 AM in the morning, and we got quite severely behind schedule, 2.5 hours, but by the end of the day we were actually ahead of schedule, which is really incredible. I think it just shows how great they run things at Castle Combe, and it's pretty special, and I think for me at least it's probably the best in terms of the running of events that I've personally been involved in, so it's quite incredible stuff. As always, John was out there getting some really nice slow-mo footage for the montages that we put together for Castle Combe, but of course gets a few shots of me whilst I was out on track as well. Out there in the GT race here just to test the car. It had the smallest grid, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to go into that one, give myself some time to test the car, understand it again, make sure that things are where I want them to be, and if they're not, then we can quite easily pull into the pit lane without any issues. So getting the visor down, because somehow, even though as you can see the mist and fog was quite low, it was actually getting really bright out there, so I was having to put the visor down to make sure that I wasn't getting blinded down here into Quarry. So I'm not sure what was going on here with the caterer. I think he might have had an issue. He let me by, I initially let him by, and then he either has an issue or was just finishing a lap, so let me back through once again. Qualifying was a bit of a struggle, I can't lie. I couldn't get anywhere near where I wanted it to be. It might be that the track was really cold. I was on some new tyres, the MRF tyres, which I had obviously raced in the Type R Trophy, but this was a different set. So this was a slightly softer compound, so going into the weekend I was actually really hopeful that it was going to be good for me. I was going to be getting some decent lap times, but for whatever reason, especially in qualifying, nowhere near where I wanted to be. About 5.5 seconds off where I've been in terms of my ultimate speed, and I have no idea where that amount of time can go. I mean, it's bad enough when you're slow and you know why, but when you're slow and you don't know why, it's really tough to keep going in a weekend like this. I mean, I know it's only club racing, but still, you know within yourself you want to make the most of it and you want to enjoy it, and at the end of the day a lot of racing is against the clock. A lot of the time in club racing you aren't in direct wheel-to-wheel combat, especially in ones with the lesser entries like this, so it's all about timing yourself, making sure that you get quicker and quicker each session. If you don't get quicker each session, if you've got some variables, then that's fine, but for this to have that much time off, it was quite disappointing, I can't lie. So we'd come up here to finish on what was our quickest lap. As mentioned, it was nothing special. There's not much point showing it because it was not good at all. 5 or so seconds off the pace, and I don't want to be showing you that. It's embarrassing to show you when you're that slow. So I was quite disappointed in myself with that session. I had quite high hopes after the car being rebuilt, some nice new things being put on it, especially the tyres, which were supposed to be super grippy, but I don't know, just couldn't get them in the zone. Maybe it was the pressures that I partly got wrong, but just didn't feel great, which was a frustrating one. But we'd roll back to the paddock. I was slightly bemused as to why we were so slow, but with not much time until the first race, and our only race, there wasn't really much of a chance to fix things and make things better, so that was a tough one to take. So that's qualifying down here at Castle Combe. Now, it sort of just went as expected. So the plan was just to go out there, get some laps in, make sure the car felt all right. you know, I thought I heard some sort of slight banging, but I think it might have just been the stickiness of the new tyres. So the stickers are like obviously going across the ground, they're pretty sticky, those things. So my dad and John were saying that when I drove around in a few circles last night around the car park, that it was actually making quite a racket. So I think it actually just that over a couple of laps, and eventually it all stopped. So I assume that was the case. So thankfully that wasn't anything worse. I was a bit worried at first that it was something a bigger drama, but no, that wasn't the case. So that was all good. Then towards the end of the session, started to get a bit more confident again. I was just building up to it. The first sort of part of the session was getting my 3 laps in firstly, make sure that I'm all good for the race, and then after that, last few laps of the session, just try and go a little bit faster and make sure we get a bit closer to sort of the braking point. So the whole point of this weekend was just to test the car. We're not here to go 100%. We're not here to try and set any sort of special lap times. Of course, I'd like to go quick, but it's not the point of this weekend. I'm just trying to focus myself in saying that we're not here to go for any sort of special lap time or a certain result. We're just here to test the car and make sure that it's all good. And by the end of the session, it all felt pretty decent. It does kind of feel like the pads are near the end of their life. I don't know whether that's just me, but it kind of feels like there isn't the stopping power that I want when I get to the brakes. Now, I don't know whether that's just a situation where the car's obviously been sitting around for getting on to a month and a half of the car not actually running at all, which would have been the longest this year, I think. So possibly just, you know, build up of rust and so on the brakes. So possibly that just took a bit of time to get wearing down. But I don't know, it didn't feel like that full bite was there in the car. That makes any sense. When you're on the brakes, it just didn't feel 100% how I wanted it to. I think it was more the stopping power, the amount of pressure you can put on the brakes, the amount of feedback and the amount of power you're getting from that was lacking. I don't think it was that they were that rusty, even though I'm sure there was a bit of rust on them at the start, but I don't think that was the case by the end of the session. So regardless, the plan is still only to have one more event after this one, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the rest of the day goes, and we'll go on from there. Race is coming up soon, but we've got, before that, we've got a race for Chris, and we've also got some qualifying for Marcus. So I might splice in some of that footage. It's really good to see them out on track. So yeah, let's see how they do. For viewers of this channel for a few years, you'll recognise this car right here. It was the one I did my first ever racing back in 2019 at Brands Hatch with Chris. He's here today at Castle Combe Racing in the Track Attack, which I think he was quite excited about. He actually qualified on pole and won his class in both races, so that's pretty awesome to see. And Marcus here in his Ascar, painted in the style of Joey Logano's race car over in the US. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm a bit of a fan of NASCAR anyway, at least the sort of racing it provides, and it's always nice to see one here in the UK. But Chris also did a really good job. He'd never driven Castle Combe before, so it's a bit of a daunting circuit, especially at the start of the day when there was all that mist and fog. To try and figure out reference points in those conditions is very tough, and of course the track was really cold as well, so not ideal. But they had their sessions. I think there was an open series qualifying and also a race for Chris in between my quali and this race here. So we're in the pit lane, or an assembly area I guess this more is, and just getting the car ready to go, getting the camera sorted here. I think the placement of this camera here is actually really nice. It gives you that really cool perspective of working the wheel. I mean, I know you can't see, of course, what's in front of you here, but I think this mixed in with the front facing footage that we got here today is probably some of the best angles we got, which is quite cool. So it's always been a bit of a thing this year, trying to get the cameras where I want them to be, and mounting this GoPro in slightly different positions on the roll cage to try and make it look better. But personally, I think this is the best we've got it to look on the GoPro in this Honda, so I'm quite happy with this. Unfortunately though, the race was going to be a bit of a tough one. So you can see here Marcus, he was in the open race but also in this GT race here as well. So he was going around with us, he qualified just in front of us, and of course we are at the back of the grid. You know what the rest of the cars are like in GTs, but if I look at my ultimate pace in comparison to some of these cars in front, I know it's not that bad, but to be honest, I know I can be like a few seconds off, like 2 or 3 seconds off the white Lamborghini, so it's always a bit tough to see one of this far off the pace. But It is what it is. I can't change it now. It was really important to just get the car out there and running once more. So you can see here we're running up to the rolling start, which is personally a big reason why I choose this series to come and test in, is because the rolling start generally causes less chaos and it allows the field to be separated. Now I wasn't going to draw up alongside Marcus here because obviously he's got a big car through that part of the track, so trying to run side by side through the last corner wasn't really my thoughts of a good idea, but it probably would have been fine. We're only starting, but still I just didn't want to cause any extra aggravation to him because obviously good friend, but also he's got his own race to focus on here. I knew I wasn't going to be racing alongside him, so even if I got a slight jump on the start, it wouldn't have been helpful at all. So this race was really a tough one. I can't say that enough. I just struggled throughout it. The first couple of laps weren't too bad. I got quicker and quicker in those first few laps and got, I think, 2 seconds quicker than my qualifying time, but still nowhere near where I wanted to be in terms of pace, which is really disappointing. It's always nice to see these slow-mo shots. It makes me feel a bit better about the weekend, knowing that we got some cool footage like this, but regardless, the performance out on track was really a tough one today, and I can't really put into words as to why. It just, when you don't understand, it's so tough to say it. But here we go, this is my best lap. It's nothing special at all here, so come around the final corner up to the start finish line. I'll let you watch it, but you can just see many areas throughout this whole lap where I was struggling. It looks like running on low confidence, not particularly getting the setup right in the car. I think the car itself actually feels fine, but I think in terms of the setup, maybe we went slightly the wrong way with it since Silverstone and since the incident. But regardless, we came here to fix the car, or make sure that it was fixed, and we encountered a couple of issues that it's good to know, because it means that we can now go and fix them ahead of the 2022 season and hopefully not have to encounter them once more. As mentioned in the qualifying debrief, we were struggling with the brakes, so I think the pads were right on the end of their life again, which was annoying because we had that same issue at the start of the year, and I should have been a bit more open about it and made sure that they were changed before this race, but I don't know, it's a tough one. Also, the thing you can see quite evidently from this shot here is that crack in the windscreen. Now, I've seen some cracks on windscreens in race cars where they just stay there, they're fine, you can just keep them, but for whatever reason this one just really started to go. At the start of the day the crack wasn't that large, but by the time we got to the end of it, it was across half the windscreen, so that's definitely something we're going to have to replace in the next year. I know it's going to be quite a frequent thing with race cars having to change the windscreen, because the amount of gravel and stuff that gets thrown up onto the windscreen and likely will crack it is quite frequent, so it is what it is. But here we are, round the final corner. As mentioned, a completely uninspired race. Nothing of any note really happened, except from being slow, having struggles with the brakes. My lap timer came loose in the car, so that was somewhat distracting, and just generally not having the confidence to go quick. A big congrats actually to the Watsons. They won their class. It was a great battle between those two cars you can see there for the championship, I think, within class, and the Watsons won it, which is really nice to see. They have a great little team there. I chat to the guys that race the Clios as well, so nice to see them do well and get the championship there. We were rolling back to the pits. I think just disappointed in myself. It was a really tough race and qualifying session with no answers to the questions as to why we were so slow, really. So that was a tough one to take, but we move on to 2022 and hopefully have a bit more, I'd say luck isn't the right word, but a bit more confidence with this car, and hopefully enjoy the races we do in it more, because it seems like we've run into quite a lot of issues this year with it. So there we are, that's Castle Combe race 1 and only race done for the day. So quite disappointed. A lot of little things happened in that one, which wasn't ideal. First few laps, just building up to speed. As I've said already in this video, the idea of this weekend was not to go out there and get any sort of special result, any sort of lap time, beat any specific person out there on track. The only goal this weekend was to make sure that the car was feeling good, and we had got it back to kind of where it was pre-Silverstone, pre-incident, and where genuinely I was feeling quite happy with the car. It kind of felt as good as it's ever been in Silverstone, at Silverstone I should say. We're still chasing a setup that fully works for me, because I think I require ultimate confidence, if that makes any sense, in the car. And that might mean generally a slower lap time for like a quick driver, but for me, because I'm always more reserved in terms of going into any sort of session, it takes me time to build up to it, and even the ultimate result is never going to be as good as a driver that is willing to take more risks. I don't know why. I think it's always in the back of my head that if there's any sort of problem with the car, I'm paying for it. It's all coming out of my bank balance. So yeah, maybe there's that in the background, and I think possibly there's always going to be that thing. But I'm racing, at least I'm not going to be able to take that last 5%. But it is what it is. In terms of the little problems throughout that race, so the first thing that was quite noticeable was the brakes. So I mentioned that in the qualifying debrief, was I wasn't feeling 100% confident with them, and unfortunately we had a few laps at the start. I'd say maybe like 3 or 4 laps at the start that were pretty consistent and good. We're getting probably a bit quicker each time, and then the pedal just started going really long, and I don't know why. It's a bit of an odd one. The pedal just, it could feel at each lap it was just going a little bit further down, where you'd finally be able to get that bite from the brakes, and that's just disappointing. I wish that I could have had a whole race there without that sort of problem. I don't want to call it a problem, it's just another situation like we had earlier on in the year where the brakes are obviously just wearing down. And I think I've learned my lesson there. Maybe we should have changed some pads before this one, possibly. But in hindsight, what I'm going to speak about in a minute, it's probably best we didn't. So once we got into the pit, we noticed, I should say pits, into the paddock, when my dad was changing over all the stuff to get the car loaded back onto the trailer, ready for the end of the day. He noticed that one of the front studs, I think it's the front right stud, I think it's the driver's side front wheel, which obviously took the impact at Silverstone. He noticed that one of the studs had either lost its thread or had lost the amount enough of it to, it just meant that you got it tight and then it would just keep spinning. So that's a bit of a frustrating one, which I think might mean a new front hub. So my hopes for going racing in 2 weeks' time in this Honda are severely dashed, unfortunately, and I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen now, which is a big shame. I was really looking forward to going to Snetterton, doing the track day trophy, and I mean there might be some way of doing it, but I'm not 100% sure how right now. Regardless, overall, I mean the lap time was nowhere near. I mean I expected that, but with being on newer tyres, I was hoping to maybe get a little bit quicker, but I think a lot of things just mental. I mean, it's such a shame. I feel like every time I've been to Castle Combe this year, except from that meeting at the start of May, I've had some sort of problem. It's like, I mean, it's obviously all down to us and just the learning experience. But the first one we had the brakes, then we had that good event, which the car felt pretty good, and then I think I missed a few, didn't I? I think I missed a few in the middle of the year. Then I went back to Castle Combe and did the Saloons race. The tyres were absolutely gone. these are all just like things that I should have learned, I know, but so the tyres have gone there, then the car was broken, so I used the Saxo, so I didn't feel great there, and then yeah, today a couple of little things. But regardless, I don't want to be too down about it because I'm happy that the Honda's fixed. The guys over at KMC did a fantastic job to get it looking good. And I personally think it looks quite good with the front and back red bumpers. I think we might go for some skirts as well, maybe a rear wing, and just a few other little things to go red to try and make it actually look like an intended livery. But no, I think yeah, I think they did a fantastic job. I mean, these little things here. Oh, actually, there was one other thing, the windscreen. So we had noticed at the start of the day that there was a little crack in the windscreen, and then the scrutineers came around, said it was all good. They checked the rest of the car as well. The car was all good, and then that crack did get a bit bigger as the day went on. So yeah, that would need to be fixed anyway before another one. So there's a decent list of things that would need to change before the next one. But the thing is, the car underneath I think felt pretty good. I think it just, if we'd had some better brakes, or the brakes were feeling all good. I mean, I think they're essentially good brakes still, but just need some new pads. If I was feeling confident with that, I think the car would have been pretty as much as good as I'd had it. But you know, as the day went on, things got unfortunately a bit tougher as we went on. But regardless, I'm rambling on here. We're finished here at 2 p.m, so I've got the cool opportunity to go around and do some media work for the rest of the day. John's been out there filming stuff you've seen in this video, and maybe in that montage I uploaded probably a while back by the time I've uploaded this one for Castle Combe. He's been doing a fantastic job over there. We've got some really cool angles today already, he said, so I'm going to go out there and try and get some unique angles myself. And yeah, then just watch Chris, he's got a second race, and then Marcus, he's got another race as well. So nice to see the Saxo that I did my first ever race in, and then Marcus in his Ascar is always a good watch. So yeah, I'll probably round up at the end of the day, but regardless, good stuff so far. I mean, it's been a bit of an up and down one, but essentially we accomplished what we came here for. Regardless, this is a bit of a long ramble, but I'll speak at the end of the day. Right then, time to wrap up the day here at Castle Combe. So the car's going to be packed up and ready to go soon. And as I mentioned, it's been a bit of a tough one, but essentially the reason why we were here to test the car and make sure that everything was all right was accomplished, because we found a decent amount of things that we need to probably, as I sort before we take this car out again. I mean, I'm sure you could technically still take it back out in 2 weeks' time, but I'm not 100% confident in doing so. I want to feel a bit more steady in my mind that everything's exactly how I want it before I go out there again. But it's not the end of racing for this year. We've got a nice few things lined up. So we've got some more races in the KA, 2 more Ford KA races, at least for the end of this year. And I might be able to sort something else out. I mean, I've still got this entry in for Track Day Trophy, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that somehow we can get something sorted and go racing there. But so the next one's Anglesey and then Snetterton is the current plan to end off the year. I mean, I would love to try and sneak in another event there, but with the Honda being out of action, I'm not sure how good or how fair a chance that is. I mean, I'm sure that we could get everything sorted with the Honda and get it out, but I don't want to like double pay for things, if that makes any sense, because the idea at the end of this year was to sort out the brakes and go for something a bit better anyway, because that's always been a thing I've always lacked a bit of confidence in, is the brakes, so I wanted to upgrade them. Might also do a little bit of work on the engine in terms of tuning up a little bit and just generally making it look a bit nicer under the bonnet, because you know, it's a road car for so many years. It's got like 125,000 miles on it, and the idea of the Type R Trophy initially was to keep the costs down and keep it spec, so under the bonnet, you know, who cares what it looks like really, as long as it all works properly. But I'd like to make it personally look a bit nicer under there, a bit of a nicer thing to sort of just look at really, I guess, in general. And that, you know, the little bits of attention to detail I'd like to obviously improve with this one. But regardless, I hope I haven't been too downbeat in this one, but I think in general this has been the day I wanted it to be in general. So yeah, good stuff. I'm happy that we found all the things we needed to find, and we'll be racing again soon, literally next weekend. So, you know, there's no reason to be down. I mean, I've been incredibly lucky this year with the amount of races I've been able to do, and that's the reason why I've been able to get out there so much, is I guess I've been working so much, been able to get the finances in to go racing, and just all the cool opportunities that have presented themselves. Regardless, we're going to get home. I'm going to stop off, have a halloumi burger and probably some cake, and feel really, really unhealthy to round out the day. But regardless, it's been an important day that we needed. See you soon. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.